What's going on, everybody? Alex with you here again as usual. Thank you for dropping by for yet another chess video. I am super excited to make this video for you guys, even though the weather outside is terrible. I'm excited because in today's video, I get to share with you guys the Millennium eONE electronic chessboard that I've been waiting for quite some time. I'm going to start off by showing you guys the physical characteristics of the board. We're going to kind of transition into me explaining a little bit of the connectivity and the overall features of the board. I'm going to also share with you guys my impression of what the board is like. We're going to compare it to some of the other electronic chessboards that I have and kind of conclude with my final impression so that you guys, after watching this video, hopefully will get a better idea of whether or not this might be something for you or for a loved one or for a friend. So that you can make a more informed decision, as I always try to make all my videos somewhat informative, somewhat entertaining. So before we proceed, be sure to pause this video and hit that like, and also subscribe if you haven't done so already. I post chess videos here very regularly. There's a lot of exciting stuff to see, so I just don't want you guys to miss out. So let's go ahead and dive in. Alrighty, so we're gonna start off with the physical characteristics of the box. Yes, the box to the Millennium eONE kind of looks like this. Really well made box. Alrighty, so on the back side here we see instructions in a whole bunch of different languages. The technical data of the board: it has 81 LED lights. The dimensions of the board are 12.2 by 12.2 inches or 31 by 31 centimeters. For my European chess enthusiasts, weight of the board is approximately 932 grams, so it's not terribly heavy, but it's a solid board with a weight of the piece set of approximately 220 grams. It has a lithium battery built in, and then the connection could be USB-C, Bluetooth, Bluetooth Classic, and Bluetooth Low Energy. So that's about it for the outside of the board. We're gonna go ahead and pull out the inside here and kind of show you guys. It just kind of comes with this sort of a plastic outside. The inside of the board looks kind of like this, and then you open it this way. Before I pulled the board out, the board was actually situated over here in the middle, covered by this foam protective layer. Inside just gives you quick instructions on how to turn the board on. Just gives you brief introduction to the board. Underneath we have the Millennium Quick Start Guide. This is kind of a little bit of a bigger instruction manual. We have the USB-C cord that's kind of small, but it has a kind of an angulation to it, so sort of like a 90-degree. I guess that's helpful because for a lot of people out there that don't necessarily want the cord to be sticking out from the side of their board, especially when they're playing games, this might be very useful. So it's got a 90-degree curve to it, and then on the other side you have the regular USB that will plug into like a charging port, and it's also 90 degrees. So I don't know, it's kind of a interesting feature. I didn't use it to charge the board. I use I have a plethora of different USB-C cords, so you can just use any which one. Important information on this board, and that's about it. You have this cardboard enclosure here. It kind of looks nice. Everything's been well made as far as the box and the shipping. Inside here you also get this little canvas cloth bag in which the pieces come. You get the extra 2 queens, as you guys can see right over here. So that's about it for the actual packaging. The cable is actually inside of the box here. Not much else to it. It does not come with a little wall plug cord, I guess because in different countries people have different wall plugs, so they decided they'll just provide the USB-C cord and then you find your own wall charger or whatever. It's kind of becoming a very standard thing nowadays with a lot of electronics. They'll just send you the USB-C cord to charge your device, but yeah, that's about it. So let's move on and take a look at the board. But before I proceed by showing you guys the board, I actually wanted to mention that although I purchased this on Amazon as categorized as new, it was used. Yeah, because the box itself was kind of torn a little bit at the side, and then when I opened the box up, there were like little slight fingerprints on the side of the board. Things looked like they were neatly repackaged, but it was used. And So be careful, that's my word of caution to you guys. If you're buying an electronic chessboard somewhere, be sure to buy it from a reputable dealer like House of Staunton or any of the like official chess wholesalers. Like, don't go out and buy it that says it might be new, but it might actually be kind of used, or like maybe played once or so, which is almost considered new. But if you're gonna pay new price for it, you know, you might as well just get it new where it's all laminated and everything. Yeah, so this was, I think this was used because also, as I will kind of talk briefly, when I tried to connect the board, it already bypassed me past like the initial connection. So I think that this board may have been already connected before. So that way, like it somehow recognized that the board, it wasn't the first time that the board was being connected to a device. And that's that. Yeah, so be careful. Like I said, if you're buying this as a gift or for yourself, you kind of want to get it new, because I'm going to tell you guys that like one time on somewhere on eBay, yeah, I believe it might have been on eBay, I purchased a gimbal, a large gimbal. It was a Ronin S, so that I can do some of my footage, like, so it's going to be nice and steady. I bought it used and the gimbal never worked right. And so one of the things about a gimbal is that it takes you time to get used to using it. But in my case, the gimbal was always like rotating weirdly and hitting my camera against the side of the gimbal itself, which was really scary. And I kept talking to some of my friends and they were like, your gimbal isn't supposed to be doing that. So had I bought a brand new gimbal, I probably would have been using it to this day instead of having it in my basement, because I've only used it a couple of times and I kind of gave up on it. So I don't want you guys to make the same mistake and purchase like a chess set that was categorized as new maybe, or a used chess set, and all of a sudden maybe there's some glitches in it, some glitches that you cannot correct with like a firmware update, and then all of a sudden you don't have a great playing experience. So there's my 5 cents. Let's move on and look at the board. Okay, here it is, the Millennium eONE electronic chessboard, designed to be played on chess.com as was advertised. Also can be played on a couple of other chess websites, including Lead Chess. It is also sold alongside of another chessboard, another Millennium board that also is a little bit bigger. I don't have that one, but hopefully in the future I might be able to purchase it and then review that one. Alrighty, measuring over here, it just measures right over a foot. Both ways, I believe. Yeah, right over a foot. So it's a relatively small, compact board. Because of its small size factor, you can take it with you. Because we take our cell phone with us everywhere we go, it's nice that you can, like if you're working in an office somewhere, you can basically take this with you and put it on the side next to your computer or whatever, be playing a game. So that's kind of a nice thing, that it doesn't occupy a tremendous amount of space. In fact, side by side, as you guys can see right over here, the overall outside dimensions of the Millennium eONE are not that much different from the Chestnut Air. What is different, however, is that the Chestnut Air utilizes a substantially larger amount of its physical board to give you guys a slightly bigger square size. And in this case, the square size is somewhat smaller. As we will see shortly too, the pieces size is going to be also somewhat different. The pieces of the Millennium eONE board are going to be smaller than the Chestnut Air. And I'll kind of give you guys my opinion about that here in a few minutes. On the front of the board, we have these 3 little squares with light up indicators. Well, the first indicator right over here allows you to flip the board if you want to play for the light or the dark side. It also allows you to under promote to a knight if once you have reached that point of your game where you're promoting your pawn and you don't necessarily want to promote it to a queen, you can under promote it to a knight. The second indicator here is either the LED lights, the flashing lights that we see here. You can adjust the brightness of them depending or not if you're like a dim lit room or if you're outside. By pressing this, you can, as you guys can see, change the brightness of the LED lights. There's a total of 9 adjustments. The very brightest ones are a little too bright for me, but you can set it to however is most comfortable for you. The other option of this button is to under promote to a bishop. And then the third one here is an indicator that will turn on or off your Bluetooth. And it also allows you to under promote to a rook. So otherwise, unless you press any of these 3 buttons when you're promoting the pawn, it's going to promote itself to a queen. It did say in the instruction manual that if you have to connect this board via the USB-C, that you would need to have your Bluetooth turned off like this, okay? So that's about it for the actual buttons here. When all of the pieces are removed, as you guys can see over here, the board gets all wild with colors and basically tells you to set the pieces back in its original position before start playing. On the back side of the board, there's not a whole lot going on. There's one little tiny, slightly submerged, it's kind of a very flat profile on and off button. And that's kind of nice to have that button not protrude or anything, so that way you don't accidentally hit it. You just have to press it once and the board turns off, and then you press it again. You don't have to wait or anything like that. Just press it and the board turns off or turns back on. On the side right up here, probably going to be a little bit hard for us to see, but there is one little port for the USB-C. This is where you're going to be charging your board, and also where you can connect this board to the computer if you want to look at your games, that type of thing. As far as any other buttons or options, that is about it for this board. Like I said, it's a relatively straightforward board. It's made in such a way that unlike, for example, the DGT e-board, where you have to finick around with the connectivity and everything, this board's pretty much designed with simplicity in mind, where you just turn on the button, put your pieces where they need to be, connect it to your phone or your iPad, and you should be ready to go. So that's about it for the physical characteristics of the board. My pros and cons about the physical characteristics that I'm going to go ahead and share with you right now. Overall, the build quality is quite nice. It's got a kind of a matte plastic finish on top. Feels really nice. It's got a little bit more rigid plastic encasing that kind of follows on the perimeter of the board, but also is on the underside. On the underside, you got these little 4 button things that are rubber, so that way your board is not sliding back and forth. Oh, and you also have a little reset knob over here that you would just put a pen or something in there to reset your board if necessary. What are my impressions? I think that the board is a really nice, compact, sort of small size. I like to see boards that are not really big. Like I said, it doesn't weigh a whole lot. You can throw it in a bag or a backpack. In fact, you could probably throw it in like a school backpack, because it's really not that much bigger than maybe like a small, tiny laptop. It doesn't weigh a whole lot, so it's not like you're gonna feel it dragging it around. Overall, construction-wise, it's made well, in my opinion, compared to some of the other boards I've tested. I think it's made really well. One of the things that I probably would want to see, and I'm going to start this topic off pretty much as soon as I can, is the fact that this board right over here, maybe when they do like a Millennium E1.2 or something like that, they have quite a bit of space right over here. That basically some real estate that we have to work with. These buttons right over here are placed really nicely. However, I would probably like these 3 buttons to be placed maybe on the side. Make them physical buttons. Make them like real buttons that you can actually hear click. They could be placed on the side thing. Take the entire board dimensions and push them all the way out into the corners. That would realistically make the square size bigger. And I feel like that would correct so much as far as, because here's the thing, I feel like the square size here is a bit too small for me. Maybe for some other people it might be perfect, exactly what they're looking for, but the square size could have been a little bit bigger. And this is something that I did not see while it was advertised on different websites, because once again, they were showing this board really up close. But I'd say I would like to be able to see slightly bigger squares maybe in the next version. In fact, if I push this closer, once again, the Chestnut Air. The Chestnut Air has been one of the more successful boards out there. I love this board. I love it for the fact that it's so seamless. It connects so easily. The square size is small, but it's not... It's just as small as probably I would want it to be. I wouldn't want it to be any more smaller for serious games. So for serious games at home or against other people, this square size, it's not a 2.25, but it's good enough. And the pieces are made to where the bases are wide enough to where This board plays very comfortably. I'm going to show you the pieces that come with the board. Here we go. There's the king, the queen, the bishop, and then the knight and the pawn. And overall, the pieces are they're relatively light. They're light. They're still stable because the base is proportionately big enough, I guess, to be able to prevent the piece from toppling over, as you guys can see here. But as you can see also from the sort of once again from the pendulum effect of me letting go, this kind of gives you an indication that the base is not super heavy. Otherwise, it wouldn't vibrate this many times. It would settle in quick. So my best ability to show you guys that these pieces are not super heavy. On the underside here we have a rubber finish right over here. It's not felt, it's just a piece of this rubber, black rubber on the bottom. There's some kind of a sensor that allows the board to sense these pieces. It's a little bit too small, I'm gonna be honest. For me, these pieces are a bit too small. I like to have, because here's the thing, they're small and they're light, and when it comes to handling these pieces, I would say that handling the king here is okay. The queen, which is shaped and sized almost as high as tall as the king, it's okay. Bishop's all right. Knight's okay, but we're getting like, okay, so here's how I grab the king. Okay, do you see that we're grabbing the king in a usual way? But as we start to progress towards smaller pieces, I start to switch my grip to the small piece grip, to where, you know, and especially like with the pawn, you have to be really light with it, because you can't grab it like you would normally grab a pawn, as we've seen in so many different pawns in this video. We kind of grab it by the side, but now all of a sudden our grip sort of switches. So it's important, a little consideration for us to take into account, because this becomes a thing where we're holding our pieces like this, more or less, instead of holding them the usual way. In order to give you guys a little bit of a better perspective, I'm going to compare some of the sizes. So this is the king to the Millennium eONE. In comparison, the board that occupies almost the same amount of space, the Chestnut Air, the king here is right next to it. Now, in my opinion, and hopefully my opinion will be helpful to you guys, this Chestnut Air I would consider small, but it's doable because it's easier to grab and it's got more dimension to it. It's got more bulk. Even the pawns, as you guys will see here in shortly, they are going to be easier to hold on the Chestnut Air and a little bit trickier to hold on the Millennium eONE. In comparison, here's the king to the chess-up board. As you guys can see, it's substantially bigger, but the chess-up board is bigger as well, dimension-wise, so naturally the piece is going to be bigger. And then in comparison, this was the Dubrovnik chess set from Royal Chess Mall, one of my favorite chess sets. Yeah, so the size of the king here is almost the same as the size of this pawn. Just to give you guys a comparison of how small this piece is. The queen here, in comparison, we have the queen from the Chestnut Air and then the queen from the chess-up. So definitely this is going to be the smallest of all of them. The interesting characteristics about all these pieces from the Millennium eONE is just how they're made. They're made very, very slender. Like the neck is super slender. Perhaps they made it specifically this way so it would be easier to grab right by the neck instead of having to grab by the top of the piece. And just making it slender accentuates here's these areas that diverge and makes it easier for you to grab. So that way, if it was a little bit more bulky, it would not make these wide enough, so you wouldn't feel the distinction, maybe, I don't know. And then comparing that to the bishop from the chestnut bishop is going to be definitely a little bit bigger, a little bit more sizable. Chess-up bishop right over here, taller, more slender than proportionately the chess-up pieces are a little bit more elongated than the chestnut. The knights on this board are going to be a little bit simplistic. The front here, as you guys can see, the front area where the head is of the knight is very sort of thin and slendered, but the backside of the knight's a little bit more three-dimensional. So it's kind of a combination of choice and aesthetics. It's a fusion of three-dimensional knight with a two-dimensional knight. It kind of looks interesting, unusual, but it is a decision by the company, I guess, of making it look like that. In comparison, we have the knight from the Chestnut Air, a little bit bigger, a little bit more three-dimensional all the way around, and definitely bigger base. And then we have the knight for the chess-up, which is substantially taller, a little bit easier to handle, and then in comparison to that, here's the knight to the here's the knight to the Dubrovnik. I'm just showing you guys what. And the Dubrovnik is a 3.75, so this is not the biggest knight out there. Definitely, it's kind of a good. This is basically for me to show you guys what I would believe would be a really good sort of easy to hold knight. So like this is great. I can put all my fingers on it, so I can really get a good grip. On this one, this is the Chestnut Air. I still have to have, like, I have a couple of fingers, like 3 fingers on it. This is more of a 2-finger hold. You can't really fit 3 fingers as easily. And this can be like 2, not really 3, but 2. But this right here, boy, I can just grab it with all my fingers. See, it's easy. And when you grab it with 3 or 4 fingers, you have much more confidence to play a faster game than when you have to go like this. See what I mean? Okay, let me show you the rooks. Here's the rook. Once again, rook's kind of slender. One of the things I want to mention about, this is one of my pet peeves. It has nothing to do with the board, but I don't like when they make the chess board itself the same color as the chess pieces because they blend in. I'd like to be able to, that's the reason, I guess, the reason why I switched on my Square Off Pro board from the plastic chess pieces, which were black and white, to the wooden ones, just because I wanted there to be more of a differentiation between the board, like the light squares of the board and the light squares of the pieces. Because if you have too much similarity between the square color and the piece color, it for me doesn't work really well. I don't like it. I like there to be, maybe in the next board they could have them in these colors. I don't know, this is great. You know, this is not totally white, so it would fit on this particular board. If the board was slightly bigger and they had these colors, that would be great. Because that way you can tell them a lot better, you can differentiate them from the board better, you don't get the eye confusion and the eye strain, and you don't miss pieces as often. Yeah, so here's in comparison, that's the Chestnut Air rook. And here's the rook from the chess-up. And here's the rook from the Dubrovnik. Okay? This is an easy rook to hold. It's a big, strong rook with a wide base. And well, once again, we're not comparing this really, but for size comparison, that's what we have. Well, finally, we've got the pawn. Okay, the pawn is small. This is what I've wanted to say, is that when you have a small chess set, the smallest piece in the entire chess set is going to be the pawn. The pawn is really, really tiny. They had to make it tiny proportionately to the other pieces because they couldn't make the pawns as big as the queen or king, because then the chess set would look weird and just disproportional. So they had to make these pawns kind of small. They're not as small as the Millennium like Karpov chess set that I've shown you guys a video to, but they're small. The Karpov chess set, I may have mentioned, was kind of a little bit hard to play serious games because it was almost like small enough for tweezer size. It's just small. You have to really be careful on how you grab this piece, and so you have to take more time in order for you to be able to grab the piece. In my opinion, you grab the piece. If the pieces were slightly bulkier, I would have probably appreciated it a lot more. Even here with the chestnut, as you can see, the Chestnut Air, the base is a lot bigger. The piece is heavier. It grabs better. Yeah, you still have to use maybe three fingers, not 2 fingers. And because of the fact that the Chestnut Air has kind of got this matte finish, it also grabs easier, whereas this kind of has this sort of a very polished plastic feel. And because of the smoothness of the pieces, It's not the best combination to have really smooth pieces and have them being so small at the same time. If you're gonna have small pieces, they literally need to be like sticking to your hand when you just put them. So you got like, I'm just trying to joke, but you guys can understand what I'm trying to say. Here's the pawn from the chest up. These pawns here are similar, although the chest up is a little bit bigger, and then the chestnut smaller, and this one's really, really tiny. And once again, here's the pawn from the Dubrovnik chess set. So now that you've seen the pieces, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna show you guys how these pieces are being set up and how this board connects to your phone, to show you guys what that is all about. The board will continue blinking until the pieces are set up in their original position, as you guys can see here. I don't necessarily think the board distinguishes between which piece is what, so we'll take a look closely here in just a minute whether or not this board has individual piece recognition. Interestingly, the chestnut air pawn, it still is blinking, so it's recognizing that pawn doesn't fit there, which means that basically it's not recognizing the sensor, so it cannot be used. But look at this. If I take the chess up piece, all of a sudden, boom. That means I could theoretically be playing with chess up pieces on this board, and those pieces are going to be a little bit bigger, but the board is still quite small as far as the dimensions of the squares. I might not be able to fit all my chess up pieces on this board, and if I do, it's going to feel very cramped. But that's kind of interesting. You'll see once you remove a piece, it starts blinking, so you have to position the piece back. But I'm actually interested if I take the chess up piece. So if I take one of these pieces, this is a piece, rook from the chess up. And if I actually connect and start playing, what are we gonna have? So in order to connect this board to your phone, you can use an iOS or you can use an Android. I'm gonna use an Android in this case. You have to go on your Play Store or wherever you get your apps. You gotta download this thing. It's called Millennium Chess Link. Okay. I don't know if my phone's gonna be able to. If you guys are gonna be able to see my phone. Hopefully you will. Yeah. So you download this app. It's called Chess Link. It's free. Once you download it, it will allow you to connect your board. You have to have this button turned on, so the Bluetooth has to be turned on, and then, well, in this case, because I've already connected this board before, it automatically connects me once I'm inside the app, as long as my Bluetooth on my phone is enabled. But the way that it works is that if the board is not connected yet, you click the search for the board. It finds your board here. It says Millennium Chess, and then you click connect to it, and if all goes well, it will connect to your board. I've had a couple of issues of when I try to reconnect to this board, and this way it will sit there for a while, and then it's supposed to connect you pretty quick, but like here it'll sit and wait and kind of I'm not sure if I need to do like a firmware update on this board or whatnot, but and then we're gonna go here, and then I'll go back again and I'll search for the board. And then hopefully if I click a couple of times, it'll connect me. Maybe your experience is going to be a little bit different if you're using an iPhone. But in this case, I'm showing it to you guys using the Android. A lot of people have, here we go, it's already connected. So I guess as soon as we went in, it automatically found this board because it's been connected to this app before. And we're ready to go. If you can play two different ways. Here it says play on Lichess, and the way that you play on the Lichess is that you have to get a token. Go to here's what my recommendation is. If you want to look at the details of how to do that, there's a video that's actually posted by the Millennium people. They actually have a YouTube channel and where they review this board and they show you how to connect it. You have to acquire a token API from Lichess. So you go on your computer, you log into Lichess, and then you go to the settings. You find where it says acquire a token API, and then basically what it does is it'll prompt you here if you want to play on Lichess. It'll say, give me the token, and then in the token on the computer, you actually will enable or disable different things that you want the board to have access to, like puzzles, like different instructions, you know, like all the different agreements or disagreements. You have to click on each one. Then you acquire a big token, and then you use that token to just log in this way, okay? Once you logged in, hopefully you guys are able to somewhat see the screen. I'm sorry, I do apologize if there's a glare from the window. You have the ability to basically join an arena, join Swiss, start a new game, anything that you would otherwise have as far as any features that are present on Lichess. If you start a new game, for example here, it'll give you like a quick choice, a detailed choice, user friend, engine link. So if you do like a detailed choice, you can start time with minutes, increment seconds, rated yes, no. You can do random. You can figure out where the rating is as far as the range of rating that you want. So you can set it to, let's say you're rated, I don't know, let's say you're rated 1500. So you can maybe set it between 14 to 17. I know that's a big range, but there you have it, and then they'll search for an opponent for you and you'll be able to play. The way chess.com would work is first you just have to upload the chess.com app on your phone, and then you turn on the app and you get to the home screen kind of like this. Then you go to more, settings, and then you go down in the settings and it says connected board. Actually, this is a really cool thing because I didn't realize that you can also find other boards, because here it says you got the Square Off Pro and all kinds of stuff over here. GoPro, I don't even know, I don't have a GoPro. Maybe it's the neighbor's GoPro, but whatever. I found the Millennium Chess on here. As long as your Bluetooth is connected, you just log in. And then when you start playing the game, what happens is basically you go over here and you click New Game. So play online the way you would usually do. 10 minutes, and this is the usual time that I play, and then you just go in there. And when you start playing, in the options right over here, you put connect continue on board right here. So as you guys can see right over here, we don't have individual piece recognition, okay? I set all these pieces, and in fact, let me try to use the chess up piece here, and I'm gonna go here. Yeah, recognize. So I could use the chess up pieces with this. That's kind of cool. Okay. It does not have an independent chess recognition like it does in like the Chestnut Air. Show me the indicator. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and go here. Okay, yeah, so as far as the ability to connect this board to like your phone or the iPad, it seems to be doing a pretty good job. It's working well. I find that the connection's relatively seamless. Well, it's a board that's specifically designed to be played online, and given that it's specifically designed for one particular function, the connection is pretty good. Like I said, one of the features of this board is that it will connect via either Bluetooth Classic or the Bluetooth Low Energy. So if you have like an older iPad, for example, that you wanted to convert into a designated chess computer, so to speak, then I think that you'll be able to, as long as you check on the configuration of that iPad, you should be able to utilize that and connect maybe some of the newer boards or newer devices that are only using like Bluetooth Low Energy. They might not be connecting properly with some of these older devices, but in this case, if you have an older device or like something that you might be able to otherwise connect with like a USB cord, then that's your other option. You can just connect it with the USB. But from what we've tested out and from what I've tested out before myself, I think that this board's really nice overall. I would say that if there was anything that I wanted to see different with this particular board, I'd like to be able to see pieces at least as big as the Chestnut Air. Chestnut Air is kind of right there where it needs to be for a smaller board. It's perfect size, perfect dimensions, and also the feel. If you're going to have smaller pieces, the biggest thing for me, don't make them super smooth. If you make them super smooth, it's already a little bit tricky to grab pieces like that. Make a matte finish, and so that way it's easier for you to grab. As far as the dimensions of the board itself, being that it's about 1 foot by 1 foot, if they could improve anything, push the squares out almost to the edges if possible. Put those buttons somewhere in the front, make them tangible buttons, and maybe change the color a little bit. But then we're looking at a Chestnut Air board. But yeah, so the physical characteristics of the board, it's nice that it's compact, but it might be a little too compact for me. Maybe for smaller hands, maybe for kids. This might be a lot of a better choice than some of the bigger pieces. But I'd say for me, my hands aren't all that big. I find it a little too cramped. So when I pick up the pieces and I play during the game, I'm not really thinking so much about how small the pieces are. I'm just thinking about the game, but I still recognize the fact that the pieces are a bit too small. Lastly, I played a number of games since I got this board. And one of the things that I recognized is, well, as with any electronic chessboards out there, the thing is, the electronic chessboard is designed to take your eyes away from the phone and just basically look at the board. So I'm very much so used to playing 10-minute games online. And one of the things that I immediately recognized when I was playing on this board is the fact that I was losing on time tremendously. Like, the people were so much more, so much more ahead of me on time. I would lose, and the opponent would still have like 5 minutes left, 6 minutes left, and I would just run out of time because in any electronic board, unless the pieces move themselves, like the Square Off Kingdom set, and even then, it's the thing is, you have to move the opponent's piece. You have to then move your piece, and for some reason that takes up a lot more time. Maybe it's the fact that you have a physical board and you tend to stare at the board longer because your brain is, I don't know, working differently and you're recognizing the position differently as opposed to playing online. Whatever the case might be, I feel like I've been losing so many games on time, and usually that's not the case. 10 minutes for me is plenty of time to play a game, but in this case I was really, really cramped for time. Lastly, and of course this might be the reason why the board's resold, possibly, is there's kind of a little bit of a periodic glitch, and this might be a glitch that might be present in some of the other Millennium boards. This is a glitch that's not specific to this board either, because I've seen this particular glitch on the Square Off too. I haven't seen it on the Chestnut Air because I feel like the Chestnut Air people, they've tested their board like a million bazillion times in so many different circumstances just to make sure that it's working like the way it should and then it doesn't give any glitches. But one of the glitches that I noticed on this board, especially like towards the end of the game, when you're looking at your clock and you're like, God, I have like a minute left and the opponent has like 6, and I really have to push these pieces periodically, the opponent will make a move and it will light up that the move needs to be made, and you pick up that piece and you put it where the opponent has wanted to put the piece, and then suddenly it continues to blink from that point to that, and you're like, what's going on? You refer to your phone and it says that you haven't moved the piece where the opponent moved it. So you pick it up, you put it back to the original position, you put it back, you pick it up, you put it to the original position, you put it back, and then maybe after 4 times it's like, okay, it recognized you moved it. That just wasted like 20 seconds of my time, and I only had about a minute left. That's really frustrating. I mean, maybe, and this happened on a Square Off, the roll-up board. That's frustrating to me, because when you're creating some kind of a device that's meant to give you a real-life experience and basically take you away from the phone, from the computer, you want it to work seamlessly. You don't want it to give you any issues, ever. As soon as it starts giving you issues, it goes, So, like I said, maybe with firmware updates and bug fixes, and maybe I'll figure out how to do a firmware update, or maybe these things will disappear. And also another thing is when you like exchange pieces, sometimes if you pick up the piece too quickly and you exchange, like if you're taking somebody's piece or whatever, if you do it too quickly and you don't do it properly, like really you have to like be like, okay, I pick up the opponent's piece, okay, I'm putting that piece on my piece, okay, and it should be fine. If you're doing it like the way that a lot of people do it, you grab your piece, you slam into the opponent's piece and just push it out of the way, you grab the other one, sometimes it gets confused. I recognize that as an issue too, and then you have to basically put the pieces back, and then you have to do it a couple of times, and then it finally recognizes that's what you meant to do, and then you're fine. So that's really kind of frustrating for me. I don't like to have those things going on. It really takes away from your experience and enjoyment of playing the games if it continues to give you these type of problems. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully I won't say too many terrible things about the board. Like I said, it's made well. It's made to play online on Lichess, chess.com. It's made in such a way that you don't have to finick around with it. And in my opinion, this kind of costs a little too much. This board is retailing for like $300, and we've seen the Chestnut Air board was retailing for like 200, and in some cases they gave discount. It was like 180. Yeah, 180 versus 300, and then the Chestnut Air board is like has no glitches whatsoever, and it's bigger pieces, easier to play, and a lot more connectivity. As we've seen, it can connect to Fritz. It can do a whole lot of different things. Yeah, so basically, I don't know. I would have priced this board at least at about 200, so that way it would be competitive to the Chestnut Airboard, but we have what we have, and like I said, it might be the perfect board for some people, and it might be something that maybe we'd want to wait for, maybe version 2.0. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this honest, open review, my opinion about this board. Hopefully you guys have taken away some things, some interesting things. So if let me know in the comments below if you have this particular board, what was your experience, or if you've had this board before, what was your experience? If you had a chance to play with it, have you been looking at this particular board as an option for yourself or somebody else? Also let me know. Once again, thanks so much for coming. I always enjoy making videos for you guys. Stay tuned. I've got a lot of exciting different chess sets that I want to show you guys within the next couple of weeks, so be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video, okay? Bye-bye.